If you're watching this video, chances are you're considering a move to the West Houston area in 2026. And if you're only reading the headlines that are coming out of the news, you could make a few mistakes that'll ultimately cost you the house that you want when you're ready to buy. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a couple of the key strategies that I counsel my buyers on every single day that'll help you sidestep some of those mistakes and set you up for success. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bauerschlag, a local real estate agent helping people just like you relocate from all over the country right to our great city. And if you're considering a move to the West Houston area, I would love to add you to our client family. The first strategy that I counsel my buyers on in the 2026 market is to be wary of the possibility of multiple offers. Now, if you just read the news, you're going to assume that you're in a buyer's market and that you have the pick of the litter and that there's not a thought in anyone's mind that you would have to compete against someone else for a piece of property. But here's the sneaky thing. A well-priced home in a highly desirable area is still going to sell in multiple offers in today's market. I like to joke with people all the time that they have great taste, and it's probably that someone else will too. If you naturally like things that are attractive, someone else is probably right behind you. And the number of times that I've been in multiple offers with my clients in 2026 was actually quite surprising to me. Nearly every single transaction I've brought a buyer to has ultimately resulted in some surprise multiple offer scenario. And I think the reason behind this is that interest rates are finally going low enough that all of the people that sat on the sidelines in 2023, 24, and 25 have said, you know what, 6.25% is not great, but it's better than 7.5%, 8%, right? With no real end in sight. People are optimistic right now that things are generally going to improve as interest rates decline. And I think people want to make sure that they don't get into a place where they can't afford the house on price alone. So there's almost this mentality that I've witnessed so far in the first several months of the year, which is to say, no, things aren't great economically, but they're good enough for me to say it's time to make a move. Now, this has played out in a bunch of different scenarios that have kind of caught people off guard. I had a scenario where I was standing in a house that had been on the market for 24 hours. I had an approved appointment. And while I'm standing there, I get this notification on my phone 45 minutes into my showing that said, your showing's been canceled. That's weird. So I called the listing agent and I said, hey, did you guys sell the house? And she said, yeah, I'm so sorry. We executed a deal last night. That is for a highly desirable property that had only been on the market for 24 hours. Now, my poor buyers, right? That 45 minutes was just long enough for them to fall in love. But the buyers were also in a mindset that's pretty common, right? They've heard the news. They heard it's a buyer's market. So they were asking me while we were standing there, hey, what do you think we can offer? Can we ask for a seller contribution to closing costs? How much less do you think we can get for this house? And I was sitting there telling them, you cannot. And then unfortunately, we got the best evidence, which is that they had sold it the night before. Right? Now, there was another scenario that just happened last week where this house has been on the market for months. And we're thinking that we've got the opportunity to make an offer that's below list, right? Why wouldn't you? And unfortunately, wouldn't you know it, rates went low enough that they said some other buyer threw their hat in the ring. And here we are. After 60 days on market, I've written an offer that I think is fair and competitive, and someone else comes in with a cash offer and beats us out. So what I'm trying to impress upon you and any buyer that I sit with in a consultation is that you can't depend on what the news says or what the interest rates are specifically to determine what's going to happen when you try to buy. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the exact neighborhood, the exact area that you're in, and the exact price point that you're trying to spend. Now, my goal as your agent is, of course, not to make you suffer heartbreak in the form of losing a house in multiple offers. There were happy endings for both of these buyers. We did find them the house that was for them. But what I'm trying to impart here is that listening to the news and expecting things to be a certain way is simply not how our market works. There are people in the marketplace that believe the condition that we're in right now is good enough for them to say, hey, I'll do it. And you need to be very cognizant of the fact that someone might find something just as beautiful as you do. Now, the next strategy that I work on with my buyers is to find a home with what I call durable value. Now, durable value kind of goes hand in hand with finding the homes that are most attractive to everyone else, right? Like, we want to find something that's in a great location, that's going to appreciate long term, that doesn't have any structural or mechanical deficiencies, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And that's why you need a friendly neighborhood real estate agent in your corner that knows what's going to sell the fastest and when, right? So when we're looking at homes, what I'm always trying to educate my clients on is to make sure that whatever you're spending is set up for success with long-term appreciation. So these are going to be things that, in my view, are not going to be encumbered by issues in the future when the macroeconomic circumstances inevitably change, right? So I'm going to look at things the way that your dad might look at them. I'm going to be looking for structural mechanical soundness, right? I'm not really interested in something that's got a lot of foundation issues or poor construction materials that are used throughout, or something that's got 60-year-old pipes in the ground that haven't been replaced that are going to cost you $25,000, right? But what I'm looking for is, are you ultimately buying in an area that's either got great school districts or is not in a floodplain, or, it doesn't back up to any major street, that's going to really be attractive long term? Now, of course, some of these things can change, right? Like, you can buy a home in an area that gets rezoned to a different school within a district. But what I'm trying to get you to is a district itself that is desirable, right? Now, you may buy a house that's not in the floodplain. It might be in the low risk zone. And eventually you might find yourself in a home situation where it got rezoned into a portion of the low risk floodplain. Like, certainly those things change. But what we're going to start out by doing is making sure that we don't land you in really unfortunate things that you cannot change long term. Time and time again, I'll have clients bring properties to me where they say, well, this particular attribute doesn't bother me. And even though you are buying your house for your own personal use and enjoyment, what I feel charged with as your agent is always making sure that we put the shoe on the other foot, which is to say, even though it doesn't bother you, is it big enough of a deal that it'll bother someone else, right? So things like unusable yard space might be an issue long term. Things like a sewage treatment plant being within a half a mile radius of your house might be a big deal. Or things like having a very busy road in your backyard might be something that influences the way that this property appreciates or can even be sold in the future, right? So when we meet and we talk about what's the most important in your search, the thing that I always have in my back pocket is that durable value, or where we are headed over the next 7 to 10 years. Now, a third major portion of the strategy conversation that I have with my buyers in 2026 revolves around new construction. And it's kind of two ways, right? It's not only the people that want to buy new construction, but also the people that are considering resale where new construction is kind of near, right? So what we need to focus on whenever you're purchasing in 2026 is making sure that the value that you are ultimately paying the builder, or the value that you're paying for resale near a builder, is a fair price. Builders are experts, in my opinion, at negotiating almost anything to incentivize a purchase besides the price itself. So more times than not, I'll have a buyer say, hey, I'm really interested in Candela or Grange or Cross Creek West or Jordan Ranch, or all of these neighborhoods up and down the West Corridor, or Bridgeland on the Waller County side, right? They'll ask me all of these questions. Do you think this is a good place to buy? And I always kind of ask them what their intention is with the property. And of course, the answer that I'm going to give varies. But ultimately, what I want to know is, how long are you going to stay in that home? And what sort of circumstances are you going to be exposed to in the time that you are going to own it? Now, when we think about why builders want to protect their price, it's because they know if they're going to be building out in a community for X number of years, that they have to be able to increase their prices over time, right? So you will see builders all the time offer folks like $50,000 at the design center. They'll waive the lot premiums. They'll buy down your interest rates. They'll pay your closing costs. They'll do backflips to do anything other than lower the price. And all that's fine and well, except that if you, the buyer, establish your cost basis in the home with a price that's artificially high, you have essentially eaten into your future appreciation as you own the home. And what I know as the agent is that even when someone tells me they're going to live in a home for 10 years, the national average is something closer to 6 or 7, right? So I want to make sure that if life comes at you fast, you haven't established a price in a new construction neighborhood that you have to get out of. So when we're looking at new construction, I like to make sure that the price that the buyer is ultimately going to pay really is positioned for long-term growth. And it kind of tags back to the durable value conversation that I just referenced. We need to make sure that you're kind of in the middle of the pack, and then you're not prepaying an artificially high amount of money just because the builder is providing you with some other sort of incentive. Now, frequently that some other incentive is going to be interest rate driven. And let me tell you a quick story. Just this last Friday, a couple days ago, I called a new construction community that I have experience in and have sold in several times. And there's 2 builders in this community, And one of them is very fair on price, and they're very fair with the interest rate incentives that they're giving the client. And I don't really have concerns about the total value that the person is paying for that house on the way in. Now, the other builder likes to do kind of this high-low pricing where they start off very high and they say, well, we're going to knock off $50,000 on this price, right? But they'll either knock $50,000 off the price or they'll lower the interest rate. And it's just so funny to me to listen to this, right? So I was talking to builder number 2 and I was calling on a specific property. He said, hey, that's one of the properties that we've already reduced. So we don't have any interest rate incentives on that house. He did say, we'll give you $10,000 at closing costs, but no incentive on the interest rate. So the buyer will just get whatever market is. Now, there was another property that was also attractive to the client. And he said, oh yeah, that property's price hasn't been reduced. And there was a $50,000 difference between the two. And he said, if you guys take this property that hasn't been reduced, we will give you an interest rate incentive. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, why would you ever do that? Except if you don't know what is going to happen to you in 7 or 8 years, right? Like if you pay the builder $50,000 more just because your monthly payment is going to be lower, when you go to sell, that new buyer doesn't care at all about your interest rate. But now you have a cost basis in the home that is so much higher than everyone else's. So that's what I really look out for as your real estate agent. And the last sort of the strategy part of this new construction conversation is to make sure that the quality of what you're buying is actually there. I have seen $400,000 homes be in excellent condition, and I have seen $800,000 homes be honestly pathetic. I've had conversations with construction managers on an $800,000 home where you could hold a level up against the frame of the drywall and it's not touching. And I've had to say, hey guys, I need you to refloat this. We need you to redo this. And they say, oh no, that's within our standards. Well, it's not within mine. You know, shouldn't you get a straight wall for $800,000? And I've also seen $400,000 homes that are absolutely unimpeachable. They are perfect. They're these little jewel boxes that someone has really fussed over and cared for, right? So I think there's this idea that more expensive is better quality. And I've seen that cut both ways. I've seen that where it's true and I've seen it where it's not, right? So as the agent, what I'm always looking out for is that what you're paying is of course fair, but what you're getting is actually in excellent condition as well. As you can see, there's a ton of complexity in the purchasing market of 2026. And if you need an advocate in your corner to help you navigate all of these nuances, fortunately for you, I'm available to help you out. If you're thinking about moving to the West Houston area, I would love to be your realtor. I've helped hundreds of people just like you find their place here in Houston. If you'd like to connect, make sure to check the description below where my contact information is available. And if you found value in this video here today, make sure to click the link below and subscribe because we put content like this out every single week. See you soon.